I came back from the grocery store and found the front door wide open. Just swinging there, hinges creaking in that lazy afternoon wind like something out of a horror movie. My stomach twisted. Not because I thought we were robbed. No. I knew that door had been shut when I left 30 minutes earlier. Jessica was home. She always locked it behind me. She's that kind of woman, obsessed with appearances, routines, the perfect image. No way she left it open by mistake. I walked inside and called her name once. Just once. I knew better than to expect an answer. There was music playing upstairs. Not loud, just enough to be heard if the house was dead silent. I stood still for a second, trying to place the song. Something soft. Something romantic? No, not quite. Sensual. Something she wouldn't listen to alone. Not unless she was trying to set a mood. I closed the door gently. My key still in hand. I didn't even take my boots off. I remember that because I could feel the grit of sand on the kitchen tiles as I stepped forward. We don't live near a beach. The sand wasn't from me. I could hear voices now. Not clearly, but low tones. A man's voice. Hers. A giggle. Then a long pause. Then the unmistakable creak of our headboard. I didn't go upstairs. I didn't rush in, didn't yell, didn't pull a dramatic movie scene. I walked into the living room and sat on the couch, keys still clenched in my hand like a blade. My heart was pounding, not in rage, but in something colder. Slower. Like a fuse had just been lit inside my chest, and I was waiting to see how far it burned before something exploded. You think you'll fall apart when something like this happens. That you'll collapse or scream or throw things. But no. The truth is uglier. You freeze. You become something not entirely human. You become a mirror to the betrayal in front of you. And all I could think was, how long has she been doing this? She came downstairs 20 minutes later. Fresh mascara. Fresh blouse. That same smug, empty smile she always wore when she wanted something. "Oh hey, babe," she said. "I didn't hear you come in." I looked up at her. She had no idea I'd been sitting there the whole time. No idea that I'd heard them. No idea that I could still see the shape of the man moving behind the curtain upstairs as he scrambled to get dressed. "You left the door open," I said. She paused for a fraction of a second. Enough for me to catch the flicker of fear. But then it was gone, buried under that same cold mask. "Oh, sorry, I must have forgotten. I was just cleaning." Cleaning. Right. I stood, walked past her, brushed her shoulder on the way to the stairs. "Where are you going?" she asked, a little too fast. "To get my jacket," I said. "I'm heading to the VFW." I wasn't, but she didn't need to know that. I opened the closet upstairs and reached for my uniform jacket. That's when I noticed the box missing. The blue one. The one I'd kept for 20 years. My medals. My service stripes. Even my dad's Bronze Star. Gone. The shelf was empty. I stared at it for a full minute. Not breathing. Not blinking. My hands started to shake, not from grief, but from something worse. I went back downstairs. She was in the kitchen now, pouring herself wine. "Midday. Where's the box?" I asked. She didn't turn around. "What box?" "You know damn well what box." She turned slowly, sipping from the glass like she was in a commercial. "I sold it." 3 words. I sold it. "Sold it for what?" I asked, my voice low, flat. "For money," she said, like I was the idiot. "We needed a little extra for the trip." "What trip?" She blinked. Too fast. The spa trip. The girls thing. "I told you." No, she hadn't. But I didn't call her on it. "You sold my medals?" She rolled her eyes. "Rolled them? Don't be dramatic. They were just old things collecting dust. You weren't doing anything with them." There was a pause. "Besides," she added, smiling just a little, "I used his card to book the hotel. So technically you got your medals back." I didn't understand what she meant. Not yet. But I would. God help me, I would. The next morning, I drove to every pawn shop within 50 miles. I didn't tell Jessica where I was going. She was asleep when I left, snoring softly, like she hadn't sold my family's legacy for a weekend of sweaty hotel linens. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom for a long time, just watching her. The same mouth that had said, "I do," now muttered the name Brandon in her sleep. Yeah, I heard it. I didn't even flinch. Just made a quiet note in my head. Brandon, tennis coach, drives a Beamer, probably wears bracelets. I'd never met him, but I already hated everything about him. By the third pawn shop, I found the box. It sat in a glass case like it was any other worthless relic. The clerk was some college kid with a piercing through his eyebrow and the attention span of a Labrador on cocaine. "You selling?" he asked without looking up. "No, I'm buying." He followed my eyes. "Oh, the box." I nodded. "How much?" He scratched the back of his neck. "Let me check." He pulled it out with zero ceremony. No gloves, no reverence. Just popped the latch and started reading the tag inside. $325. Cash only. I stared down at the medals. My name etched on the back of the silver star. My dad's bronze, his blood on the ribbon. My grandfather's service coin from Normandy, scratched to hell and barely holding together. I reached for my wallet, then stopped, because I didn't have $300 in cash. Not on me. Not anymore. That's when something twisted in my gut and uncurled into a grin. A dangerous kind of grin. I asked the clerk, "Do you take credit?" "Yeah. Got a chip reader." "Perfect." I pulled out the sleek black card Jessica kept hidden behind the microwave. The emergency fund card she never let me touch. Said it was for house expenses and emergencies. Said it was in both our names. It wasn't. It was Brandon's. I'd found it last week when I was cleaning behind the spice rack. She must have forgotten it after one of their little wine nights. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Just shoved it back where I found it and figured it was a mistake. But now it was divine damn justice. I tapped the card and smiled as the reader beeped. Paid. The clerk stuffed the medals back into the box like they were paper clips. "Want a bag?" "No," I said, cradling the box in my hands. "I'll carry it." I didn't go home right away. I drove to the park where Jessica and I used to take our daughter when she was little. Sat on the same bench where we once watched her chase squirrels and fall into bushes. Back then, Jessica used to laugh with her whole body. Back then, she smelled like vanilla and sunscreen, not Chanel and stranger sweat. Now she smelled like lies. I opened the box on my lap and stared at those medals. I thought about my dad taking a bullet in Nam. Thought about my grandfather crawling over bodies at Omaha Beach. Thought about me, fresh out of high school, getting sent to the Middle East for 2 deployments, praying every day that I wouldn't come home in a coffin. And my wife, Jessica, the woman I trusted with everything, sold those memories for a hotel room and a bottle of bad champagne. I closed the box, clenched it so tight my fingers turned white. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "Hey babe, when you get home can you pick up milk?" No apology. No mention of the medals. No sign she cared. Just damn milk. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened up the banking app Brandon had installed on her phone. She probably never logged out. She was sloppy like that. And I had already taken a picture of his login screen, just in case. What I saw made my pulse slow to a crawl. Brandon's credit card was maxed out. Hotel, spa, flights, jewelry, and now a $325 charge to a pawn shop tagged Gold Rush Exchange. And then I noticed something else. He was still out of town. I checked her calendar, shared on her cloud. They were in California. Napa Valley. Romantic getaway. Paid entirely on his dime. He didn't know yet. He didn't know his card had been used to buy back the medals Jessica sold to fund their little escape. But he'd know soon. Because cards like that come with fraud protection, alerts, and interest. And if I knew one thing about men like Brandon, it's this. They love control. They love being the one who holds the leash. Jessica thought she was playing him. Thought she was clever. But the second that notification hit, she'd be the one sleeping on a Greyhound. And I'd make sure the whole ride home smelled like my medals. I didn't go home that night. I parked 2 blocks away from the house and just watched. Lights on upstairs. Then off. Then on again. I could make out Jessica's silhouette through the curtains, pacing, checking her phone every few minutes, like a junkie waiting for a dealer who's late. She wasn't texting me. Not a single message since the one about the milk. I wasn't surprised. She'd already spent every drop of honesty she had left. I cracked the window and lit a cigarette. I hadn't smoked in over a year, but it felt right. Felt like something my dad would do if he were sitting in this car with me, watching his son's marriage rot behind a white picket facade. At around 10, she finally left the house. No makeup. Hair tucked into a baseball cap. Hoodie. She looked like a teenager sneaking out to meet a boyfriend. She got into her car, Brandon's car, the black Beamer, and drove off without a single glance over her shoulder. I followed her. No headlights. Slow and quiet. Like I'd done overseas in places where getting caught meant never seeing sunlight again. I wasn't thinking about the risk. I wasn't thinking about anything, really. Just watching her taillights, knowing every street she turned onto by heart, because I was the one who taught her to drive stick 15 years ago. She pulled into a hotel. Not a fancy resort. Not some romantic vineyard lodge. A cheap roadside joint with flickering neon lights and 2 stars on Yelp. The kind of place where people don't ask for last names and you can pay extra for no housekeeping. She parked, got out, walked to room 109, didn't knock, just used a key card, and vanished inside. I killed the engine, sat there in the dark for a full hour, and I started to piece things together. Napa Valley wasn't real. The flights? Fake. The jewelry? Probably stolen. That romantic trip she bragged about to her friends over brunch last week? Bullshit. They were holed up in a roadside box with paper-thin walls and burnt-out air fresheners, pretending they were rich and spontaneous while living off someone else's stolen card. And that someone else, Brandon, wasn't even there. I finally understood. Jessica wasn't cheating on me with Brandon. She was cheating on Brandon with someone else. Another guy. Another name. Another disaster waiting to happen. Suddenly, it all made sense. The second phone I found stuffed in her purse last month, which she claimed was for work emergencies. The sudden obsession with going to yoga retreats twice a month. The unwashed wine glasses in the sink, lipstick marks on both. She was spiraling. Hard. And still, she thought I didn't know. That I was just the dumb husband who'd come home, mow the lawn, and ask if she wanted chicken or beef for dinner. I didn't move for a long time. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. But inside, something shifted. Because now this wasn't just about betrayal. This was about exposure. And exposure required patience, precision, and timing. I waited until she came back out. It was past midnight. She looked rattled. Kept looking at her phone. She got in the car, slammed the door harder than she meant to, and drove off in the direction of home fast. Nervous. I gave her 10 minutes, then walked across the lot and approached the front desk. The clerk looked up, barely interested. Some kid in a wrinkled polo with greasy bangs and a Mountain Dew on the counter. Room 109, I said. My brother said he left his watch in there. Can I grab it for him? He yawned. You got ID? I slipped him a 50. He slid the key across the counter without another word. I stepped into the room and felt like I'd been kicked in the chest. It reeked of cheap cologne, air freshener, and something bitter underneath. On the bed, rumpled sheets, a used condom wrapper, and 2 half-empty wine bottles. I took it all in. Then I looked on the dresser. Another card. Gold. Embossed. Not Brandon's. Different name. I pocketed it. Next to it was a receipt. Room service for 2. Ordered to this room. Under the name Mr. Alan Fields. Alan. I didn't know an Alan. Yet. I left the room and dropped the key on the desk on my way out. The kid didn't even look up. Back in the car, I sat with the new card resting in my palm. She was playing 3 men now, me, Brandon, and this Alan. Maybe more. And she thought she had it all under control. I smiled. Not because I forgave her. Because now I had proof. Not just suspicion. Not just feelings. Names. Dates. Charges. And soon, evidence. And the next time she asked me to pick up milk, I was going to hand her a damn avalanche. I came home before sunrise. Quiet. Measured. The way a man walks through a crime scene he's not ready to report just yet. The house smelled like lavender and dishonesty. She always lit those overpriced candles when she wanted to distract from the truth. I stepped through the kitchen like a ghost, listening for creaks in the floor. The hallway was dark, but our bedroom door? Wide open. Jessica lay in bed, eyes closed, face scrubbed of makeup like she'd never lied a day in her life. One arm curled under the pillow, the other dangling off the edge like she was waiting for someone to take her hand in her sleep. I stood there for 10 minutes, just watching her breathe. I thought about how she used to fall asleep with her head on my chest, how she once cried in my arms after her dad's funeral and said she didn't want to be alone in the world, how she promised, over pancakes and coffee, that I was her only constant. And now? She was cheating on her lover with another lover, and financing it with his money, and mine. and whatever poor bastard came next. I turned away, walked into the garage, and opened the old military trunk tucked under the tool bench. Inside, one camera. Nikon. Dented, dusty, but fully operational. It was my dad's. He'd used it in the 70s to take surveillance shots for a private firm after the war. Taught me how to use it when I was 15. I hadn't touched it in years. But some skills never leave you. I wiped it down and packed it in a small gym bag, along with 2 voice recorders, a burner phone I'd used during deployment, and a notepad. The last item was new, a small box of GPS trackers I bought off Amazon the day I found Brandon's card. That's right. This didn't start last night. I'd had suspicions for weeks. The weird charges on our joint account. The sudden girls' weekends that always ended with her stumbling through the door smelling like cologne and cigarette smoke. The tan lines on her hips in winter. The new lingerie she never wore for me. I was done guessing. It was time to document. By 8 a.m., she was gone again. She didn't see me. I watched from the side window as she backed out of the driveway, one hand holding her phone to her ear, the other already lighting a cigarette. She never used to smoke. Brandon must have rubbed off on her, or Alan, or whoever the hell she was headed to now. The second her car turned the corner, I went to work. First, her laptop. She never locked it. Amateur mistake. Within 5 minutes, I had access to her email. Most of it was junk, retail promos, event invites, spa confirmations. But buried in a folder labeled Travel Docs was a scanned copy of Brandon's ID and his credit info. She was managing his finances. Probably told him she'd help with his bills while he was busy coaching. And he, the idiot, handed it over. Love makes fools out of men. Even other women's men. Next, her drawers. Tucked inside her makeup case, 3 hotel key cards. One from that sleazy place I'd followed her to. One from a downtown suite I didn't recognize. And one labeled Bayside Inn. I'd never been there. But she had. Often enough to have a room key saved. I opened our bathroom cabinet and nearly laughed. 2 toothbrushes. Neither were mine. She hadn't noticed that I'd replaced mine with a travel brush weeks ago. Hadn't noticed that I'd stopped sleeping beside her and started sleeping on top of the covers, cold and distant. She was too busy, too buried in her fantasy life with men who didn't know the real her. But I did. I knew every twitch, every lie, every pattern. I checked the trash bin and found a receipt for a jewelry store across town. A gold bracelet. Engraved. To J, can't stop thinking about you. B. Brandon. So he thought they were still exclusive. He still believed in her. How damn cute. I spent the rest of the day installing a GPS tracker in the wheel well of the Beamer. The second one went into her purse, slipped in while she was in the shower later that evening, singing to herself like she was the queen of a world that hadn't started crumbling yet. I knew her schedule by now. Every Thursday, she had her Pilates class at the downtown studio. And every Thursday, she came home glowing and sore, but never wore gym clothes. Tomorrow was Thursday. I packed my camera, tested the voice recorders, and charged the burner phone. By 2 a.m., I had her full itinerary mapped out in a spreadsheet. Names, places, money trails, and a list of questions only one man would answer truthfully. Brandon. Because what she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that Brandon was about to get a phone call from me. And when he picked up, I wasn't going to tell him about the affair. Not yet. I was going to ask him for help. The next morning, I called Brandon from the burner while sitting in my truck outside the Bayside Inn. No disguises. No voice changer. Just calm, measured words spoken with the kind of clarity that only comes when a man's got nothing left to lose. Brandon, this is James, Jessica's husband. Silence on the line. I heard the car engine on his side shut off. Then the sound of breathing, heavy and uneven. What the hell do you want? He said finally, his voice soaked in guilt and freshly stirred panic. I'm not here to threaten you, I said. I just need your help. One conversation. Face to face. You'll want to hear what I have to say. He didn't answer for a few seconds, probably weighing whether this was a trap, whether I was going to show up with a baseball bat and a shotgun. I'll give you 10 minutes, he said. Starbucks on 5th and Grand. 1 hour. Click. I sat back and smiled. He took the bait. When I arrived, Brandon was already there. Tan, clean-shaven, fitted blue polo, sunglasses perched on his gelled hair like some out-of-place TV fitness instructor. He looked like a man who genuinely believed life could be controlled with protein powder and positive vibes. Until now. Because when he saw me, he flinched. Hard. I slid into the seat across from him, dropped the Nikon camera bag on the table, and placed the GPS tracker from Jessica's purse in front of his coffee. He looked at it like it was a bomb. "What the hell is this?" he asked. "Proof," I said. "You've been paying for her to cheat on both of us." Brandon blinked. That perfect, tan mask of confidence began to twitch. What are you talking about?" I opened the notebook. Inside, time-stamped photos, hotel check-ins, car location logs, screenshots of credit card charges. His card, used at 2 different motels just days apart. One was the room I followed her to. The other? Booked with Alan Fields' card. Brandon leaned forward, staring at the photo of Jessica's hand, unmistakable with her chipped red nails, swiping a card at the Green Leaf Motel reception counter. His card. He grabbed the photo like he was trying to tear the truth out of the paper. "That's her." "No, that's my damn card. That's my card." His voice rose. People turned. I gave him a look, calm as still water. "She's playing you," I said. "And she's not just sleeping with you. She's using you to bankroll her little side escapades with other men. There's at least one more." Alan found his card too. He dropped his head into his hands, fingers tangled in his hair. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. I thought we were real. She said she was leaving you. Said you were abusive, controlling. She told me she pawned some old junk from her house because she was broke." I almost laughed. "She pawned my war medals." I watched her pack like it was a performance. Black lace lingerie folded between beige slacks and pastel blouses. Perfume she never wore around me. 3 different phone chargers. No books, no laptop, no yoga mat. Though this was supposed to be a wellness retreat. What she did pack was her good jewelry, the high heels I hadn't seen since our anniversary 2 years ago, and a pair of silk stockings she'd bought behind my back. And tucked discreetly into the side pocket of her duffel, the prepaid Visa card I'd seen Brandon hand her at the gym weeks ago. The same card he'd already canceled. It was like watching someone strap on parachutes full of bricks and step cheerfully out of a plane. She kissed me goodbye that morning like she meant it. Like I was still the man she whispered her dreams to in the dark. I stood there barefoot in the doorway, coffee in one hand, watching her pull out of the driveway in Brandon's Beamer with a bag full of lies. She never looked back. Didn't see the little camera hidden inside the rear-view ornament I'd installed. Didn't know I was tracking her in real time. Each turn, each stop. At exactly 1:13 p.m., she pulled into the parking lot of the Sandpiper Inn, a coastal motel pretending to be a spa getaway. Room 214. She checked in under the name Janice Reed, wearing sunglasses like she was some washed-up celebrity dodging paparazzi. I stayed put. Didn't approach. Didn't tip her off. Instead, I waited in my truck half a mile down the road, engine off, listening to her through the second phone I'd planted in her bag. You'd be amazed what a taped-up burner and a charging brick with a mic can catch. Within 20 minutes of check-in, the voice of another man echoed through the tinny speaker. "Not Brandon. Definitely not me." "You look incredible," the man said, breathless, like he'd just run up the stairs and straight into a lie. Jessica laughed that throaty laugh she used to fake during our early dates. The same laugh I used to believe meant love. "My husband thinks I'm at a silent meditation camp," she said, giggling. "Idiot doesn't even know what coast I'm on." I wrote it all down. Every damn word. They ordered food, had drinks, showered together. Then the groaning started. I didn't flinch, didn't break. I just sat there in the cab of my truck, writing timestamps with a pen that never left the paper, recording everything, burning it into memory. Then came the moment I was waiting for. 4:27 p.m., the prepaid card was declined. Jessica tried to pay for a massage. I heard her curse under her breath, then make a panicked phone call. "Brandon? Hey, it's me. Did something happen to the card?" No answer. She called again, and again, then sent a text. "Hey babe, the card isn't working. Can you call me? I'm kinda stuck here." The silence that followed was delicious. By 6 p.m., the man she was with, Alan, I presumed, left in a lift. I'd already confirmed through my contacts that Alan's card had been frozen too. I made sure of that earlier in the week. Jessica was alone now. No working card, no cash, and no way home. When she called me, it was 6:41 p.m. I let it ring once, then answered like nothing was wrong. "Hey babe," I said. "Everything okay?" Her voice cracked. "Yeah, well, funny thing. My card isn't working, and I think there was a mix-up at the spa. Could you maybe come get me?" I paused, just long enough. "You said it was a silent retreat," I said slowly. "No phones, no contact, remember?" Another pause. Then came the first real panic in her voice. I know. Plans changed, and, James, I need you to come." I looked out the windshield at the setting sun. "I'm on my way," I said. But I didn't turn the key. Not yet. Instead, I let her sweat. She tried calling Brandon again. Then Alan. Then her mother. Then Uber. Lyft. Nothing worked. The town was too small, the apps too spotty. By the time I pulled into the lot, it was after 8. She was sitting on a bench outside the motel, hugging her knees, mascara streaked under her eyes like war paint gone stale. She stood up when she saw my truck. Relief washed over her face. But the moment she opened the passenger door and slid in, I handed her a manila folder. She looked down, confused. Inside, printouts of every hotel bill, GPS data, audio transcripts, and a photocopy of Alan's credit card. Her face drained of color as she flipped through it, page after page of evidence, of betrayal, of herself exposed. She didn't speak, didn't breathe, and I didn't start the truck. Instead, I looked her dead in the eyes and asked, "How long do you think I've known?" Her lips parted, trembling, but nothing came out, because deep down she knew. This ride wasn't taking her home. She didn't answer me, just sat there gripping that folder like it was made of fire, like if she held it tight enough, she could burn the contents to ash with her palms. Her mouth opened twice, shut again. A bead of sweat slid down her temple despite the evening chill. And for the first time in years, Jessica looked afraid. Not angry, not defensive, afraid. I let the silence stretch, let her stew in it. I wanted her to feel the weight of it all, the long months of suspicion, the nights I'd lain awake staring at the ceiling while she pretended to sleep beside me, the twisted knife of betrayal every time she looked me in the eyes and lied. "You were never going to stop, were you?" I finally asked. Her hands trembled. I didn't mean for it to. I laughed once. Just once. Short, bitter. "Didn't mean for what to happen, Jess? Didn't mean to spread your legs across 3 state lines? Didn't mean to pawn my family's dam or metals? Or didn't mean to get caught?" That one hit. She winced like I slapped her. "Please," she whispered. "Can we just go home and talk about this?" "Home?" I echoed, the word foreign in my mouth. "You think you have a home after this?" She opened her mouth again, but I cut her off. "Calm now. Cold. I've got the recordings. The pictures. The financial statements. The video from the motel security cam. I know about Alan. I know about Brandon. Hell, I know about that freak from the yoga retreat in Phoenix too." Her jaw dropped. She hadn't even tried to cover her tracks on that one. I turned the ignition. She jumped slightly when the engine roared to life, like she expected something else, something more final. "I'm not taking you home," I said. Her head whipped toward me, panicked. "What? Where are we going?" "To your mother's." She recoiled. "No. No way. You can't. James, please, she doesn't know anything." "She will," I said, turning onto the main road. "Tonight." "Don't do this," she begged. "Let's just fix this." "There's no we to fix." "But our daughter." "Is it my sister's?" I snapped. "Safe. Out of this." That silenced her. She stared out the window, blinking hard, probably working up some crocodile tears. But I knew better. The well was dry. We drove in silence for a long time. She kept glancing at me, probably expecting some explosion of rage, some moment where I'd slam the wheel and shout how much she hurt me. But I didn't give her that. I wasn't angry. I was done, and that scared her more. As we approached her mother's street, she suddenly said, "You don't understand what it's been like." That almost made me laugh again. "No," I said, "but I understand what it's been like for me." She bit her lip. Then, soft as a child, "You stopped touching me. You stopped seeing me." I felt invisible. And you fixed that by screwing strangers on hotel pillows with other people's money? Her silence was answer enough. We pulled up outside her mother's place. The lights were on. I called ahead, told her there was something urgent, family emergency. Said I'd explained everything in person. Jessica's mother, Carol, never liked me much. Always thought I was too stern, too serious, too military. She was about to find out just how serious I could be. I parked. Jessica didn't move. Get out, I said. She didn't. So I got out, walked around the truck, opened the door, and dropped her bag on the sidewalk. I'll send you a list, I said, of everything that's mine. Everything that's not, keep it, or burn it. I don't care anymore. Her eyes welled up. Don't do this here, she whispered. Please. Not in front of my mom. I leaned in close, just enough so she could see how hollow I'd gone inside. You already did this, I said. In every motel, in every bed that wasn't ours. I'm just driving the last mile. She finally stepped out. As I pulled away, I looked in the mirror one last time. She was still standing there in the headlights, arms limp, folder clutched to her chest like a corpse she couldn't bury. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel triumph. All I felt was clarity, and a quiet, rising certainty that the real reckoning hadn't even begun yet. Because this wasn't over. Not until everyone knew what she was. It was 2 days before she called me again. I didn't answer the first time, or the second. I let the phone ring out, its tone echoing through the house like a slow, methodical reminder that she was still out there, still trying to claw her way back into my world. By the third call, I knew I had to take it. James, she started, voice shaky. Please, can we just talk? No, I interrupted, calm. Too calm. No more talking. You've had your chances. Don't be like this, she pleaded. I'm sorry. I've always been sorry. But this, everything with us, it's been broken for so long. I just... Stop. I felt the rage bubbling up, but I pressed it down. You're sorry now? After all of this? After using me like some back pocket safety net? After stealing from me, lying to me, humiliating me? Her silence was the worst part. That's when I realized she wasn't sorry. Not really. She was sorry she got caught. Listen, I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said, her voice small now. I don't even expect it. I need you to understand. I've been struggling, James. I've felt invisible. I've felt trapped. I didn't know how to get out, and I didn't know who to turn to. So I turned to them. Who? I asked, the word a razor on my tongue. Them, she repeated softly. Brandon, Alan, and all the other men I thought would make me feel seen again. Her words hit me like a slap. All the years, all the things I thought we shared, turns out she was just looking for someone to make her feel important. And she thought she could get away with it. Why didn't you leave? I asked, unable to keep the hurt out of my voice. If you wanted out, why didn't you just leave? Because I was scared, James. Scared of what life would be like without you. But I didn't know how to fix us anymore. I thought it was too late. There it was. The truth, buried under layers of manipulation. She didn't want to leave me. She just wanted the illusion of a perfect life while getting everything else on the side. I stayed silent for a long time. James, please. I finally spoke, my voice colder than I thought I was capable of. No. And I hung up. The next morning, she showed up at my front door. I didn't answer. She knocked again. Then again. She knew I was home. I'd been sitting there, watching her like she was some kind of shadow, drifting through the life she'd destroyed. After 5 minutes, the knocking stopped. I waited. The doorbell rang. I ignored it. Another knock. Then, a soft voice. James, I need you to listen. Please. I'm begging you. I stayed quiet. I know I've ruined everything, she said. I've made the biggest mistake of my life. But I'm still your wife. We have a daughter. Please, don't let this be the end. My eyes stayed fixed on the door. I knew if I opened it, I would give her another chance to lie, to beg, to manipulate me with the same script she'd used before. I wasn't going to do it. Not anymore. I waited until the evening before I decided to check the messages. There were 23, all from Jessica. Every single one desperate, pleading, and filled with half-truths. The final message, though, caught my attention. I've packed my things. I'm leaving. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know. I'll always love you. And I will always regret this. You were right to do this, James. I know you'll make it right, but I'll be gone before you can make your choice. It's over. I'm gone. The finality of her words stung more than I expected. For the first time, I realized how much I'd been holding on to, how much I was still in love with her. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. There was no coming back from this. No happy ending. Just a trail of destruction. I walked to the window, staring out at the empty street, wondering how many other men had felt like me, standing in the wreckage of a life they thought was perfect. How many had realized, too late, that love wasn't enough to fix a broken trust. And in that moment, I knew what I had to do next. I wasn't going to chase her. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to let her leave. And I wasn't going to feel guilty for it. I was going to walk away. The next morning, I went to her mother's house. She was there, sitting on the couch with her mother, looking small, fragile, a far cry from the woman who had destroyed everything we built. Her eyes met mine, but she didn't say anything. I didn't say anything either. But when her mother turned to me, I could see the understanding in her eyes. The guilt. She knew. Jessica stayed quiet, her head down. I think it's time we talk, I said. And that was the beginning of the end. The silence in Carol's living room was suffocating. The air hung heavy with the weight of 100 unsaid things. Jessica sat there, still as stone, eyes focused on her lap, like she was hoping the earth would swallow her whole. Her mother's face was a portrait of disappointment, but behind it, there was something else, regret, maybe, or guilt. Either way, she wasn't surprised. She couldn't have been. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, letting the moment linger, letting them feel the finality of what was happening. Carol was the first to break the silence. I don't know what to say, she murmured, her voice small, almost apologetic. I never expected. Save it. I cut her off, my voice hard. I've heard enough apologies to last a lifetime. Jessica shifted, her eyes flicking up to mine, but she quickly looked away. She wasn't ready for this conversation. She wasn't ready to confront the damage she had done. And I wasn't going to give her the time to lie, to make excuses. I stepped forward, pulling out the folder from under my arm. The same one I'd given her 2 days ago. I've given you the chance to explain yourself. I've given you the chance to come clean. But now it's time for you to understand exactly how far I've gone to make sure everyone knows who you really are. Jessica's face paled. Her lips trembled. But she didn't speak. She didn't move. I handed the folder to Carol, my eyes never leaving Jessica. Carol took it reluctantly, her eyes widening as she flipped through the pages. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, screenshots of text conversations, and photos. Evidence of her daughter's deceit in black and white. I don't want to hear that you didn't know, I said, addressing Carol. You had to have known something was off. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking for your sympathy. I just want you to understand that this is who she is now. This is the woman your daughter has become. Carol's hands shook as she held the folder, her eyes darting between the pages, processing everything at once. She opened her mouth to say something, but then shut it. There was nothing left to say. Jessica, meanwhile, had her head buried in her hands, her whole body trembling. I couldn't tell if she was crying, but I didn't care. Not anymore. I had no sympathy left to give. You've made your choice, I continued, my voice steady. And now you'll have to live with it. I'm done. I'm not fighting for something that's already dead. Jessica finally looked up, her eyes swollen from the tears she hadn't allowed herself to shed earlier. James, please. I never meant for it to get this far. I held up a hand, silencing her. I don't want to hear it, Jess. I don't want to hear the excuses anymore. You had every chance to change. You had every chance to stop. But you didn't. And now, you have to face the consequences of your actions. I turned to leave, but before I could step out the door, Carol spoke. Are you really going to walk away from this? She asked, her voice a mix of disbelief and pain. After everything? After the family you built? I didn't look back at her. I didn't have to. I already knew her answer. I'd known it for weeks, for months. Hell, maybe even for years. It was the answer I had been avoiding all along. I'm not walking away, I said, my voice low and firm. I'm moving on. There's a difference. With that, I left. I didn't look back as I stepped into my truck and drove away. It didn't matter what they said or what they thought. The decision had already been made. My life, the life I had spent years building with Jessica, was gone. And I wasn't going to spend another second chasing something that was never meant to be. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I went to my sister's house. I knew she would be the one person who wouldn't judge me, wouldn't give me some speech about making things work or finding a way to forgive. She just hugged me when I walked through the door, didn't say a word, and let me sit in silence. Later that night, as I lay in my old bed, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't help but think about everything that had led me here. All the lies, all the manipulation, all the years I'd spent trying to make it work, trying to fix something that was already broken. It didn't matter anymore. I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let Jessica or anyone else define who I was. I wasn't going to let her actions destroy the man I'd worked so hard to become. I was done being the victim, done being the fool. And that night, as I closed my eyes, I made a promise to myself. The next chapter of my life would be written by me, and there was no room for her in it. 2 days later, I got the call. It was from Brandon. I answered, just to hear what he had to say. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice strained, like he'd been drinking. "I should have told you everything. I didn't know what she was doing to you. You thought she loved you." I cut him off. "I get it. I don't even know who she is anymore," he muttered. "She's not the woman I thought she was. I don't even know what to do." I could hear the regret in his voice. But it didn't matter. He wasn't the one who had to pick up the pieces. That was mine. "You need to get away from her," I said. "And don't look back. You're better than she is." There was a long pause on the other end. "I'm trying," he said, barely audible. "But I don't think she's going to let me go that easy." "Then make sure she does," I said, "before it's too late." I hung up, and I knew, deep down, that the final confrontation was coming. Not just for Jessica, but for everyone who had ever allowed her lies to go unchecked. It was time to bring it all into the light. And this time, no one was walking away without facing the truth. This was the end of the beginning. It happened on a Sunday. Warm air, blue sky, the kind of day that made people believe life was still decent. Birds were chirping. Kids were biking down the street. I stood at the edge of the VFW parking lot in my dress blues, medals pinned back where they belonged, freshly polished, 3 generations of service gleaming like a line of scars that finally got the respect they earned. They were holding a community event for Memorial Day. Veterans from across the county were there, retired Marines, old Army grunts, Navy boys with canes and hard eyes. I'd been asked to speak. Not about the war. Not about politics. Just about honor. So I did. I spoke. For 15 minutes, I talked about what it meant to serve. Not just in the military, but in life, in marriage, in fatherhood. I spoke about loyalty, sacrifice, and what it does to a man when the people he trusted most defile everything he bled to protect. They clapped when I finished. But the best part? Jessica was in the back, Brandon beside her. I invited them. She didn't know why. He didn't ask. They both came, probably hoping I'd just give some vague speech, hug our daughter for the crowd, and fade away like a good little ex-husband. But I had other plans. After the applause died down, I turned back to the mic. "One more thing," I said, voice steady. "I want to thank someone special for being here today." Heads turned. People murmured. I looked right at her. My wife, Jessica. Her eyes locked onto mine like a deer about to be hit. "You gave me a reason to become the man I am today. Not because of your love, but because of your betrayal." Gasps echoed. Brandon stiffened beside her. I continued. "You pawned my medals for a weekend getaway with a man you thought would stay quiet. You used another's card to buy back what you discarded, and you laughed about it in text like I was too blind to ever know." I turned to the crowd, calm, measured. "And you weren't just unfaithful to me. You were unfaithful to the life we built, to the vows you swore, to the daughter who still thinks her mother is a queen." Jessica looked ready to melt into the concrete. But I wasn't done. I held up the final piece of paper, a printed copy of a police report, the same one I filed 2 days earlier. "She committed fraud," I said. "Multiple counts. Across 2 states. She forged identities, abused financial trust, and left a trail of debt behind her like breadcrumbs." I handed it to the event organizer, who looked stunned. This is being submitted to the district attorney Monday morning. Not because I'm angry, but because it's justice. Jessica shot up from her chair. James, please. I ignored her. Turned back to the crowd. I wanted to remind everyone here that sometimes the battles we fight don't end on the battlefield. They follow us home. They sleep next to us. They wear our rings. And with that, I walked off stage. The silence behind me was louder than any applause I'd ever heard. As I passed her, I looked her in the eyes for the last time. You thought I'd break, I whispered. But I just learned how to aim. Brandon didn't say a word. He just stared at her, then down at the papers. Something shifted in him. Something collapsed. Maybe his illusion. Maybe his ego. Maybe both. She tried to follow me, but two police officers, who I'd called earlier, met her at the end of the lot. She froze. They asked her name. She gave it. And that was that. As the officers cuffed her, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. Because in the end, this wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about getting even. It was about telling the truth. Out loud. Where everyone could hear it. No more hiding. No more pretending. Just the clean, brutal sunlight of consequences. I picked up my daughter from my sister's house that afternoon. We went for ice cream. She held my hand like nothing had changed. And in a way, nothing had. The only thing that changed was that I stopped protecting someone who never protected me. And for the first time in years, I felt like a soldier again. Not because I wore the uniform, but because I finally knew what it meant to fight for my own damn peace.